Haydos, welcome to the Brisbane Heat podcast. I guess straight off the bat, need to ask, who hits a bigger ball out of Chris Lynn and Matt Hayden?
Chris Lynn, easily. Jeez, he's a whippet, but he's strong, and it goes a mile, and I love it. Good on him.
You famously played in the game at the Gabba in 2005 where Brett Lee cleared the ground and ended up in the nets. Who hit a bigger ball that day out of Linny and Brett Lee?
Yeah, that was pretty big. As Jimmy Marr said, that ended up in Yarchek's pie factory at the 7-Eleven. It was massive ball. But yeah, Linny, I think, consistently hits the ball hard. He's very similar, I think, to Andrew Simons. Bat speed, good upper body strength, good bat and body position. I think he hits a big ball.
Linny's kind of the superstar of the Big Bash League. Looking at it from afar, what impact do you think having a player like Chris Lynn has on the Brisbane Heat and the Big Bash League in general?
Well, I suppose because it's a shortened version of the game, someone can have a really good day out and win the game pretty much off their own bat. Now, that's true for the other formats of the game as well, but it's definitely amplified in the shorter version. So Chris Lynn comes out and strike rate 170 plus and smashes 100. It's just about all over. It's the pressure. And this is the other point about T20 cricket. They go, it's the easiest format. It's actually the hardest format from a power hitting position because, one, the expectations are so high, and two, it is all about maximum risk. So Test cricket, minimal risk and therefore less reward, but over a long period of time. So it's a sustained pressure. One day cricket, you hedge your bets. That sometimes you're probably 60% in favour, subject to the match conditions of risk. T20 cricket, 100% risk, and your reward is failure. So that's why you'll get your peaks and troughs in any given season of T20 cricket as well.
Now, you're a foundation Brisbane Heat player and you came back out of retirement and coming up against a lot of your ex-Australian teammates, Warnie, Stewie McGill, Brett Lee. What was that like, you guys kind of rekindling that?
Yeah, it was really business as usual. I think when you think of those names, like I'd probably played, maybe 25 games against Warnie, in first class cricket, another handful against him, for Australia A versus Australia. It's probably old sort of scars that have been brought up and we relished those competition opportunities as well. You got to remember that, when you're on tour, the majority of your cricket is actually played away from the limelight. Every day you've got training, 2, 3, 4 hours a day. So you get a chance to face those blokes, a lot during your career. So when it comes to the Big Bash League and knowing how important that was for us all, Warnie came out of retirement like me as well, to really start the inaugural Big Bash League. We all knew how important it was for Australian cricket. We all had sort of our heart on it. And as a result, I think, the first season was a bumper season. A lot of those fans came across to watch Brett Lee, to really sort of get involved with Warnie, to buy into the sort of spar talk off the field was terrific. So I think that was a real added flavour and bonus for Cricket Australia and the respective states that those guys did come out.
And conversely, two New Zealanders that you would have played a lot with against Dan Vettori and Brendan McCullum.
Yeah.
What was it like having them in your change room?
It was no surprise actually that we got on like a house on fire because, even through my playing careers internationally, I loved playing against them. Dan was a terrific competitor. Easily, the best off spinner behind Murali and Harbhajan. I just found him really hard, in particular in the short versions of the game, to get away. So he was a great ally, to have in the change rooms. Baz McCullum, I was always a bit of a fan of Baz. When he came out in 2009, smashed 100 to launch the IPL, it was just, gold, And from a batting point of view, I just liked the way, he explored risk a little bit like Adam Gilchrist. It was almost like he didn't care if he got out, but deep down that that's not right. But there was that sort of limitless approach to his game, which was fun to play against because you wouldn't know actually who and which Baz McCullum was going to turn up. But when he did, and he often did, it was magic. So to have him in the change room as well, a great fella, both of them, now Don Queenslanders, It was brilliant.
You top scored for the Heat in that first season. Do you have any favourite memories from BBL 01?
Oh, I think it probably wasn't a good sign that, I top scored, because I don't think I had that good a tournament. But just for me, it was a challenge of it being, my final season, and I was seriously contemplating having another season as well. But I definitely made that promise to the powers to be that was going to be, a year that I was going to complete. But look, just a snapshot in the life of what it was like during that time. I'd play a game at the Gabba. I had my boat down at Winnemanley Yacht Club. I'd get in my boat because my family was staying over at North Stradbroke Island, so I'd get in my boat at about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd travel across Moreton Bay at night. I'd jump off the other side. I'd moor the boat. I'd swim to shore, and I had a couple of tinnies, which I'd walk home with. And by the time I got home, it was 2:30 in the morning. I'd wake up the next day with my family. I'd go to the beach all day, and then I'd come back and I'd play a game, a day and a half or 2 days later, at the Gabba or wherever else we had to play. So, it was sort of like, it was like the celebration of the end of my, life as a cricketer. And I was a bit sort of foot in both camps, because it's really hard to give up. Cricket, is something which is just ingrained into your soul. But by the same token as well, my family was just, at that stage of its life where it had seen me play professionally for, 25 years. And you know what? It was about locking off during the summer. And, as we do now, sit on the couch. I listened to my best mates commentating on the Big Bash League. Compared to what some of the other products that I'd seen, in international cricket, like Pakistan and the West Indies, wasn't the most favourable outcomes. So to watch a really premium a game of cricket, quality product, every day of the summer on school holidays is just magic. And, I'm really pleased that, I was a part of it.
Well, did you know back then that it would become what it is today, with kind of 5 games at the Gabba selling out for a domestic match?
Yeah, look, everyone was taking a punt. I guess I had the premium or the inside word in a lot of ways, playing the inaugural Big Bash League. And this is from the perspective of cricket in general, like as a lover of cricket. But I can always remember standing out in the test match where Sachin Tendulkar broke the most number of runs in the history of the game. And we were playing in Mohali in the north of India. And about 20 runs out from his achievement, I looked at the stadium and I thought, there's no one here. This is India. This is like the premium ground of Test match cricket. With about 10 runs out, the ground started to swell, not with punters, but with school kids on camera angles to make it look like it was a big deal. And then the pyrotechnic display didn't go unnoticed because it stopped the game. There was that much smoke and I call it smoke and mirrors at that stage, because I felt like the game of Test match cricket was starting to reach a point where it was not being patronised. So when 2009 came along, and now we're suddenly playing in front of full crowds with domestic players, with huge budgets, with the whole critainment, as I like to call it, starting to come to the fore. I was just sold. I was sold a long time ago, but I was sold on the fact that this game had to be on the landscape. It was a must-have, not a nice-to-have, a must-have. And if it was going to cannibalise, and to some of the other arguments that were passing around at the time, if it was going to cannibalise the income and the popularity of the other 2 formats, lay it out there, because people have to vote with their feet. I mean, as a punter now, no one tells me to turn on the television. And what I want to do is turn on the television, then I want to go watch the game. I'm going to go vote with my feet with the kids, go watch a Test match or a Big Bash League game if it's a good product. This is. So look, there was lots of conversation around, whether it was going to be a successful product. in my head, the vision was always going to be that it was going to be the premium product. And it was going to reinvigorate something which you hear, for example, my uncle talk about, and that's the love of Sheffield Shield cricket. You know, he'd go into Post Office Square or into the mall and it'd be streamed live or it'd be, you know, covered off on radio. We'd lost that hope of having a domestic product shining. This is shining. And it's not just shining for the men, it's killing it amongst the women as well. Killing it. And I reckon that's a damn good thing.
Well, Haydos, it would be remiss of us while we've got you here not to get an Ashes prediction. So who's taking home the urn?
Yeah, Australia's going to win the Ashes. I've no doubt about it. The Poms are a rabble. I mean, they've started their tour again, you know, with injury concerns. I mean, I look down the list and I honestly don't even know who half of these guys are. And this is a place which is a tough, like India, it's a tough place to tour. But, you know, what they have got is some extremely experienced fast bowlers. You know, Broad and Anderson. You know, so those two guys in particular are a real threat to us. You've got a particularly good two batsmen as well in Cook and Joe Root. But, you know, apart from that, you throw a blanket over those four, who are they? So if I was the captain, I'd be saying to Mitch Starc, mate, when those four players are there, you're just there to break them. Whatever it takes, break them. Especially at the Gabba, because any one of those go and you've got England have got no hope. And I don't think they've got any hope anyway, to be really honest. I think we've got our concerns in our lineup. One thing we don't have is concerns with our bowling. Our bowling lineup is solid as. I mean, with Pat Cummins, with Josh Hazlewood, with Mitchell Starc, with Lyon, I mean, that's a complete package. That's an awesome foursome. You know, once you get beyond that, you think, well, who's our next best? But I also believe we've got really good reserves as well. I mean, it's a real shame that Paddo is injured and out of the series. But you know what? We covered off. My biggest concern over us is just how moving forward, because I'm not thinking about the Ashes. I think that's in the can. How do we treat the next 2 years of Test matches? How do we get the best out of Smith and Warner? You know, like who are now in the prime of their career, but they're also in the back end of their career. How do we get the best out of them? How do we bring on Matt Renshaw? How do we get him out of first gear and start to back what we all know he can do? That's paramount. How do we get these guys playing spin? Because they cannot play spin. And half of our games are in the subcontinent. How do we actually then take, you know, our traditional role of an all-rounder, which has been in and around a Brad Haddin, an Adam Gilchrist, to a lesser degree Heels, but, you know, someone that's basically been an all-rounder wicketkeeper option. And how do we find an all-rounder? Which we've got, Mitch Marsh, you know, and several others. You know, they're the roles that we need to be really focusing on. And by the way, how the hell do we freaking cut Usman Khawaja some slack? I mean, I don't understand. I look statistically at the data and I go, this kid's a superstar. I look at his on-field presence and I go, yeah, he's quiet, but you know what? So what? You know, I want to see our selectors go, this is our team, and sticking with it. And I'm not sure we've actually got our best wicketkeeper yet either. You know, I'm at a stage now with Wade and Pete Neville that, you know, at 31 and 29, maybe it's our chance, a bit like they did with Ian Healy, to pick a bolter, to pick someone that we're going to pick now for the next 10 years. You know, so someone like Bancroft, who I believe is 24, what's he going to look like at 34? Get 10 years out of a decent batter keeper. Because what I've seen so far from either of the debate of Neville and also Wade is that, you know what you're getting. You're getting an average of 37 in first class cricket, and you're getting an average of a smidge over 20 in international cricket. That's not good enough. That just doesn't cut the mustard. The expectations are high now, guys. It's got to be looking like a Gilchrist and a Haddon, and that's what it's got to be.
You talk about the pick and stick method, and that's probably how you got your real good crack in 2001. You were in and out of the side, and then all of a sudden, with a bang, India, your breakout season.
Yep, that's true. You know, but I'd also, by that stage, played 100 Sheffield Shield matches, had a number of titles under my belt, and had scored, I don't know how many first-class hundreds, but buckets. Buckets for county cricket, buckets for Queensland, buckets for club. Hundreds, not 50s, not 60s. No one cares about that. The side only cares about whether or not you get big hundreds. So I'm thinking of a guy like Martin Love. When he got 100, he got a big 100. He didn't get 101, and he got plenty of hundreds. You know, so the message is really clean for old folks like me, you know, that need to see more than a sweet 40. Sweet 40 doesn't help your side. In any situation, it might if you're chasing a small total on a dodgy wicket. And I've heard this debate a lot. Oh, there's plenty in the wickets. That's fine, but you've got to find a way in your technique to hang in there long enough to get a big 100. Because let me tell you, it's a whole lot easier after tea. So have that same discussion on a green top. When you get through lunch, work hard, get through lunch, get to tea, and then happy birthday after tea. And I think that kids need to hear that as well. I know that someone like Stewie Law would have been saying that up here in Queensland, because that was his expectations as well. But that's what wins games of cricket.
As a Brisbane boy, tell us about playing an Ashes opener at the Gabba.
Yeah, well, you know, I probably had mixed reactions at the Gabba because I guess, well, firstly, I had this remarkable, loyal fan base that were kind of pissed off that I didn't get an opportunity, you know, and didn't get an opportunity sooner because their expectations were that I was, you know, there for them, for Queensland, and they really wanted me to play for Australia. So they were quiet, you know, they were nervous like I was, and they were quiet, and I'm sure Matty will feel this as well. They just, like, everyone wants to see Matt Renshaw play well. So the best way to say to them, thank you, is to be there after tea and be bludgeoning in attack, because that's when you see them go a whole lot less quiet and a whole lot more, you know, celebrating the Queensland traits. So it's great, you know, always playing in front of your home crowd at any level. It doesn't really matter. It was even when mum and dad and three dogs were up in the stadium, you know, when we were playing Sheffield Shield cricket at times, it was special. The Gabba is also as a venue, and I believe Kevy Mitchell's, you know, come to the full stop at the end of his career, but you know what, as a groundsman, he just did a great job of that venue. Year in, year out, it's a really unique ground. It's the fastest cricket wicket in the world, bar none. So it's a unique opportunity as a player as well as a spectator. The Gabba Test match is you know, my last year of Gabba Test matches was really special Ashes. You know, I think, you know, we were in trouble early and well, I think just JL got out just a bit before lunch in 2000 and wherever it was, 2 or 1. And Ricky and I just batted the whole day together. I mean, what you really want to do as an Australian cricketer is get the largest apple pie you can possibly find and just throw it into the face of a pommy bowling lineup. And then once you're sick of doing that, then just rub it in a little bit more and just drop it and just see the expression on their face, because they know that once they're in that position that they've got the whole of Australia to look forward to. So, you know, that was a great, you know, you want to play those games where you just go, not just a moment, but you just go, this series is ours. And you got a chance. I was lucky enough to get a chance to do that as an opening batsman, because you just set the tone. And the Gabba was the perfect place to do it.
You talked earlier about the lifestyle balance you had in year one, and you're almost the typical laid-back Queenslander where you love the great outdoors, surfing, fishing. Where did you get that sense of adventure from, do you think?
Adventure's probably a decent word. I'm channeling guys like Andrew Simons as we flipped over in the bar. Look, it's a long story, but, you know, I grew up as a bush kid. Cricket was part of our game, but, you know, every afternoon I'd be in the Volkswagen at 9 driving, and we'd go hunting. You know, the mum being a school teacher, we'd always go to the coast, you know, which meant, you know, love of fishing. My 2 uncles loved fishing, so I was always with them. At 14, I took up surfing, you know, so, you know, that suddenly, in and on or around the water, you know, I just found that was kind of my calling in a lot of ways. And, you know, when I was 15 and leaving home, I never thought I'd leave the bush. But when I came to Brisbane and saw and started to develop relationships, you know, on the coast, in and around the water, you know, it expanded my horizon. And, you know, I'm a proud and bona fide coastal bum in a lot of ways. Just love it. And then I guess just love of traveling as well started to introduce me, you know, to different cultures, and that sort of rubbed off on my love of cooking and food. Yeah, it's just, mate, I'm living the dream. Let's face it. It's just, I'm having a ridiculous life. It's, you know, the life of an ex-cricketer, but, you know, the life of a bloke that loves his state, loves his country, has just an abundance of opportunities to travel and be a part of different stuff. It's ridiculous.
And that love of cooking, is that really from spending time in the subcontinent and the West Indies and that kind of thing, and experience different cultures and different ways they cook food?
Yeah, look, it's a long story, but you know, I think if there was one impact, it'd probably just my love of my grandma. You know, she was just a great person, a country cook that, you know, would be a part of our life every day, you know, as a kid growing up. And, you know, from there, I guess it was just, you know, that love of food. I mean, I was, for a start, always hungry because I'd spend 24/7 on my feet, you know, running around and chasing cricket balls for a living. So there was a necessity there. And then the evolution around, as you say, that travel element, you know, that ability to be able to, you know, the first call when I go to India, for example, when I go to a hotel, is I ring up and say, I want to meet the head chef. So that's within 10 minutes that happens. So the head chef comes up. He's that happy because people love telling you about stuff that you don't know. And I don't know a lot about food. So he says, mate, come down the kitchen. You can be my sous chef. So I go down to the kitchen. Now I'm in his world. And in his world, it's a dominant world, you know, in and around the spices, the flavors, the tastes of, you know, what it is that he's done. And he's traveled. You know, he's not a bloke that's just sat and cooks Gujarat style food. He's been off in hotels, you know, in Dubai and in France and, you know, in different locations. So, you know, he's an encyclopedia of knowledge, and I'm just there to really tap into it. And I guess the final stage to it is, as a dad, you know, I wanted to tap into my sort of, you know, regional background. The fact is, my father and I would grow all sorts of crops, you know, from beans to pumpkins to potatoes to blah, 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 just hundreds of crops throughout the course of the year, because that's what we'd eat. So I thought, as a dad, that's pretty cool. That's something that was a great influence that Laurie had on me as a dad. And as a dad, I wanted to, you know, share with that. And then it went on to charity stuff, and, you know, the project that we've got up in the Tiwi Islands, you know, is just a remarkable project where food and gardening has become a metaphor for the health of a small Indigenous community. And you know what? I'm really proud of that. It's probably mine and my partner's, Guy Reynolds, in this. It's probably our proudest achievement of all things, because kids have stopped killing themselves, and you know, what we're realising is to create a safe learning environment in Indigenous Australia where there's not a lot of good stories. You know, this is one story which is a beauty. You know, now 9 years into the program, 11 full-time apprentices, 2 full-time staff out of it. Kids are thriving, and that's all through this great crock pot of love and a truth around why it is that I really like food. It's not about creating a recipe book or a cooking show, it's just who I am.
And obviously lending your name to a cause like that really helps it. So you must feel good having kind of Matt Hayden's name attached to something like that.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of things that you can do as a profile, and and it's a choice, and it's, you know, to be involved in these things takes time and effort and energy, and look, just one good thing that comes out of it and you're done, right? That's all the payback that you need. And like I said before, you know, we've got 11 good things that have come out of this program now over a 9-year period, and many, many more to come, you know, as a model and as an example of what it is that we can achieve with a couple of decent people, with a reasonable kind of concept, and a whole lot of, you know, commitment and dedication. And look, I'm really proud of Queensland Cricket, because over the years, you know, they've invested heavily also into, you know, creating a culture which wants to give back. You know, the Brisbane Heat with their ovarian cancer, that's fabulous. I mean, those things, as a young player, you need to be able to think about something beyond yourself, because ultimately when you do that, the rest takes care of itself. So culturally, I think it's really important that clubhouses like the Heat and like Queensland Cricket understand their responsibilities to community, and not just looking to invest into how it is that they grow as an organisation. Cricket is the best community thing. I can't wait to get into the summer, because I know that I'm going to have a bunch of mates that rock up. They're all going to ask each other, hey, you want a cup of coffee? Yeah, I love a cup of coffee. You sit down, you have a decent yarn, and it goes for 3 hours. I mean, people will say, yeah, but that's too long. No, it's not. It's unreal, because I get a chance to sort of meet you, and you get a chance to, you know, be involved in the kid's life for a long period of the day. What more is there to life?
Going back to your kind of lifestyle balance with surfing and fishing and cooking, do you think that helped you throughout your career, going back to the ocean or the fishing boat? Was that a big help to you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember one of the headlines when I first got picked for Australia, which I think was 92 or 93. You know, I'm not sure it was the Ashes, but headline is "Gone Fishing," and it was bang on. I was with Brownie at Coast Watch, and it was obviously the summer, and everyone knows that loves fishing for flathead, that all the R months of the year, it's game on. So of course I wasn't interested in, you know, the headlines, and you know, I wanted to go over and catch a big lizard against the side of Moreton Island. And I had no shortage of mates in the side as well that were keen to do it. Thinking of guys like, you know, Andy Bickle and Andy Simons, you know, the new guys you've got in the side as well, love their fishing. It's just part of who you are as a Queenslander. To go fishing with your mates is one of the great days of your life. Now, Simo will argue the toss. He'll say, mate, I'm not interested in going fishing. I'm interested in catching something massive. And I say, mate, as long as I'm with you, I don't care if I catch fish that long or a metre. You know, it's just about spending some time. And you don't have to talk about stuff. Like, it's good for your health. You know, it's good for your mental health. See, cricket does your head in. It's the hardest game on the planet, I'm sure, because you're just out there so long, you get exposed in all these situations. And if you don't have other stuff to go on with, it drives you nuts. Honestly drives you nuts. So you've just got to be, you know, you've just got to, for me anyway, I just felt like I really needed other things. And, you know, surfing was in a lot of ways, I think, one of my greatest strengths, because, you know, if you surf 4 hours in a day, you're reasonably fit, you know, and you've got good balance. And, you know, those two points alone make a good cricketer. Good balance and good fitness, and you're halfway there.
Can you remember a particular big fish that you caught? Anything stand out?
Yeah, oh yeah. There's been lots of big fish caught over the years, but probably the one that stands out the most was on a recent trip, actually, up in the Tiwi Islands, and I was with my boys and my mum and dad, actually. So, you know, as a family, we were all up there, and we're fishing in these rock bars, and my son gets onto this barramundi just on the incoming tide. Yeah, it was a 93 centimetre fish. And I'm sitting there with a video on my phone, and I've you know, honing in on it, and I'm watching him and his technique, and he's patient. You know, he's playing this big fish, you know, a tiny little bait runner, a little Kolkata bait runner with, you know, 30-pound braid and 40-pound leader. At any point in time, this thing could surely like moose him, but he was patient, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, as a dad, I'm not sure it gets any better than this. Like, because I know the hours that it's taken to go, even the simple things like you got to pump and then wind, or you got to keep when it jumps, you got to keep your rod tip down so it doesn't, don't go high sticking it. All these things, and he's sitting there playing this fish perfectly. We get in the boat, massive high fives everywhere. I'm thinking, how good's this? Like if I can pass on love of cricket, love of food, love of fishing, love of surfing, job done.
Well, Haydos, we'll wrap it up with the final over. So I'm going to ask you 6 questions, and we just want 1 or 2 word answers.
Okay.
So your favourite beach in Queensland?
Main Beach, North Stradbroke
Straddy?
Island.
Yeah.
Yep.
Favourite all-time movie?
Coming to America, Eddie Murphy.
Brilliant one. What's the best thing about living in Brisbane?
Lifestyle.
If you could have been a professional in any other sport, what would it be?
Surfing.
Favourite meal to cook?
Pizza. Wood-fired pizza.
Yeah, very good. If you could wake up anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would it be?
Geez, there's some good spots in the world. Very hard to go past North Stradbroke Island.
Thank you, Haydos. It's been a pleasure.
No worries.